Hello time travellers and welcome back to episode 8 of the JUKEBOX Time Machine. This week we've touched down in 1972, more specifically the 5th to the 11th of June 1972. We've got Michael Jackson, Carry On films, Old Captain Kirk, Doctor Who and a Rocket Man, T-Rex, Slade and more. So stick around to experience what the beginning of June was like in the UK in 1972. Okay, let's get into the UK top 10 from that week. At number 10 we have Little Michael Jackson with his second solo single, Rockin' Robin. On its way up the chart this week, entering the top 10, it would reach its peak position at number 3 a couple of weeks later. And at number 9 it's New World with Sister Jane. This track found itself here in its peak position for 2 weeks before dropping back out of the top 10 again.
We'll start at the start and end at the end. You'll find what your mind might possibly mend.
Right, on to films. There's only a couple of British films I could find that came out in the UK around this time. They are Carry On Matron, which was released in UK cinemas at the arse end of May. This was the 23rd film in the comedy series, which began in 1958 with Carry On Sergeant.
It's very nice of you, but I haven't got the time.
Sidney James, a crook who started at the bottom and stayed there. Kenneth Williams.
In this one, the usual cast are back in a hospital setting for more chaotic, saucy hijinks.
Oh, hello.
And as usual, covered in confusion, Charles Hawtrey.
And there was also Mutiny on the Buses, which came out on the 9th of June. This was the second movie spin-off from the popular sitcom On the Buses, starring Reg Varney and made by Hammer Films, most famous for its horror offerings.
Go on, get a move on! And don't argue! No. Oh, good. How much is this guy today? I come on all out.
Never mind inflation or industrial relations. It's intimate relations that's on the up and up.
You do want to, don't you, Stan?
Yeah, of course I do, but do us a favour. Don't do that while I've got this tight collar on.
Okay, back to number 8 of our chart rundown. In its first week of 5 in the top 10, it's California Man by The Move, which moved up to number 7 the next week and stayed there for 3 weeks before dropping again. And at number 7 it's David Cassidy with his double A-side Could It Be Forever and Cherish. This single hit its peak a couple of weeks earlier at number 2, held off the top spot by the song at the top of this week's chart, which we'll find out later.
Could it be forever, or is my mind just a rambling on?
Okay, let's have a little look at what was on TV. The kids were watching Mr. Ben, which was on at 9:20 AM on Thursday the 8th. This week's episode was called Mr. Ben Goes Ballooning.
It's a balloon race, said the young man. We're all going to race to the next town. I would love to win, but it's very difficult against a cheat. Who cheats? Asked Mr. Ben. Wicked Baron Bartram, the man with the tall hat in the next balloon. Mr. Ben asked why the young man was alone. My friend suddenly had to go, said the young man.
Later that evening on...
Oh, it's a brilliant idea. Apparently it can break down solid objects into light waves or whatever and transmit them from one place to another. Kronos!
A new star on the soccer scene, Action Man Sharpshooter. His fast, accurate shooting makes him the nearest thing yet to real soccer action. Fit him out in the famous club colours you can get for him. And score with Action Man Sharpshooter.
Okay, let's get back to the chart. At number 6 it's The Drifters with another double A-side of At the Club and Saturday Night at the Movies. This single hit its peak the previous week when it hit number 3 before dropping down 3 places this week. And the song at number 5 this week is Elton John's Rocket Man, which was falling down the chart after also failing to hit the number 1 slot because of our top song of this week. Okay, on to news and sport. In the news this week, on the 5th of June, the funeral of the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward VIII, took place at Windsor Castle.
Few of the curious stood in the sunshine as mourners arrived. A wreath from the government with the note, "With deepest sorrow." Inside St George's Chapel, away from the cameras, the service was simple and stripped of all trappings of state. The Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen Mother sat in the choir opposite the coffin of dark English oak, which was surmounted by a single wreath sent by the Queen. On the stroke of 4, the coffin was borne from the chapel on the shoulders of 8 Welsh guardsmen. In his days as the world's Prince Charming, the Duke of Windsor was the regiment's colonel-in-chief. The Queen and the Duke, the Queen Mother and Princess Anne followed behind. On these same steps only 8 days ago, they stood at the end of the Thanksgiving service for the Queen's 60th birthday. How many thoughts must have turned this afternoon to how different history might have been, but for the woman whose funeral it was today.
And on the 11th of June, the Eltham Well Hall rail crash occurred when an excursion train from Margate derailed near Eltham Station near London, resulting in 6 fatalities. In sport, tennis tournament Wimbledon had just got underway in London. American Stan Smith went on to win the men's singles championship, and American Billie Jean King went on to win the women's championship. Also, young Swede Bjorn Borg won the boys singles championship this year. Okay, back to the chart, and we're at number 4. Stuck here in its peak position for a second week is Hurricane Smith with Oh Babe, What Would You Say?
Greet me or politely turn away. Would there suddenly be sunshine on a cold and rainy day?
Again, in its peak position here at number 3 is Lindisfarne with Lady Eleanor. This track dropped again next week, but stuck in the top 10 for 4 weeks.
So, had my share of nightmares, didn't think it could be much more. You walk right across you with Lady Eleanor.
God to deliver!
Happiness is a cigar called Hamlet. The mild cigar from Benson and Hedges.
And the song at number 2 this week was The Beautiful Vincent by Don McLean. This song entered the top 10 last week at number 5 and climbed up to the second position here, held off by our strong number 1. This wouldn't last long though, as the next week Don would push that song off its throne and sit there himself for 2 weeks.
Sketch the trees and the daffodils, catch the breeze and the winter chill.
And that song that's been preventing all of these heavy hitters from reaching the number 1 spot in previous weeks was Metal Guru by T-Rex. This was the Monster Hits' 4th week at number 1 and spent 7 weeks in the top 10. As mentioned earlier, it was knocked off the top spot eventually by Vincent the next week. And the #1 song in America this week was The Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr. Okay, we're almost at the end of the video, but first we've got the last section, which is my forgotten gem of the week. This week it's Slade with Take Me Back Home. At number 14 in this week's chart, it's probably not forgotten for some, as this song reached #1. But for me, it was the only real choice of all the other songs in the chart this week that jumped out at me as something to highlight. This is the typical Slade sound, which is why I love it. It's raw and loud guitar driven rock and roll that makes you want to dance or stomp your feet. And Noddy Holder's voice cuts like no other. Okay, and that's it for this week's episode. I hope you join me next time for the Jukebox Time Machine. Until then, take care of yourselves and goodbye.
One up, one still in bed. Sometimes you can do with Lucozade as much as they can, because when they're ill, it takes it out of you, too. That's when Lucozade's energy helps get you going again.
Emma, no, stop it, no!
Because Mum's never allowed to run out of steam, is she?
Oh, no.
So remember, Lucozade's for you, too.